I think he can't hear you, sir.
नहीं उसका सुनो अब अभी हो रहा है.
हो रहा है?
हाँ. अंगद. Angad, you can hear me? Your voice is not coming.
Sir, I think still there is some audible.
हाँ, I think so अंगद का प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है.
हाँ, अंगद का अभी काम करते हैं सर अपने कोई वो उसको बोलते हैं ना सर, आप इसको चैट से ही बोलते हैं कि एटलीस्ट वो ये
हाँ.
सबको एक्सेप्ट ये ऐड करना चालू करे तो देन वी कैन स्टार्ट.
Recording has started, but Angad, your voice is not coming. Ashish, sorry for the inconvenience, sir. हाँ सर. Devendra, you start.
Angad, am I audible to you?
Yeah, Devendra.
हाँ.
I'm audible to you. मैं उसको admit करने के लिए बोलता. Then you start. Then after
Yes, yes,
that,
yes.
Ashish sir will start.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, great. Devendra, you can start.
Okay, okay, okay. So, hello everyone. Welcome all of you in today's webinar. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Devendra.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay. So, Ashish sir, now I would like to request you to stay because we are late by 2 minutes because of audible problem at the Angad place. We have to start a bit late.
Now, am I audible to everybody?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, 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 sir.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, sir.
So should I start now then?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
I
sir,
will
yes, sir.
request
Without...
everyone, please mute your audio and stop the video.
Yeah. So, well, good evening, all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Although I can see gentlemen right now. 5:30. I hope all of you must have had afternoon siestas and be, wondering what to do next. Lockdown is extended. So today we are going to talk about electronic evidence and especially focusing on the aspect of its admissibility and proof in court. Okay, so I prepared a small kind of a talking point. I wouldn't call it as a presentation because at the end of the session, which I'll wrap up in very short time, because ultimately this is a question: what is electronic evidence and how does one deal with it in court? Both as a defense lawyer as well as a complainant's lawyer, both on the side of the prosecution as well as the defense. So we begin with what is electronic evidence. And the the birth of this entire concept of electronic evidence came about with the passing of the Information Technology Act, which was passed in 2000. Now, this act came into being largely because one could see there was a huge increase in the digitization that was happening. Transactions were happening on the basis of electronic documents. There was e-commerce, and therefore there was a need felt that now the time and legal recognition of this which is happening in cyberspace. And to that end, the Information Technology Act was passed in 2000. Now, this is where the entire journey starts. Now, it amended a lot of other acts, but what concerns us today is the IPC, the Indian Penal Code, the Bankers Books Evidence Act. We will keep coming back to this act in all criminal trials, especially, even civil trials. Bankers Books Evidence Act, will come to that a little later, and certain provisions of the Indian Evidence Act. So these were the three primary acts which we are ultimately now going to be focusing on, which were amended by the Information Technology Act. Okay. Now, so the IT Act defines an electronic record. It is very important what the definition of this electronic record is. Because as we progress, we are going to talk about the admissibility of this electronic record and how does one actually prove it in a court of law, what is the probative value, etc., etc. So we define, or the IT Act defines an electronic record as a data record or data generated, image or sound stored, received or sent in an electronic form. So the operative word here is electronic form. Or microfilm, computer generated microfiche. Now, microfilm and microfiche are out of vogue. Nobody uses it. So basically, information received, generated, stored in the electronic form. This electronic record. Now, the question that begs consideration is whether an electronic record is a document. Now, a document concept which is defined in the Evidence Act. So, if one is produced for the inspection of the court, then an electronic document, electronic record would be a document within the meaning of Section 3 of the Evidence Act. So the answer is yes, an electronic record is a document. Then we come to this very interesting proposition, which is basically Section 59 of the Evidence Act. It says all facts except the contents of documents can be proved by oral evidence. Okay, now this is Section 59 of the Evidence Act. Then we have to now come to the breakup of what how an electronic record can be seen. See, it can either be a primary evidence or secondary evidence. Now we know what is primary evidence and what is secondary evidence, so I will not take much of your time to define what is that, but we know what, as lawyers, as practicing lawyers, we know what is primary evidence and secondary evidence. Now we will give some examples because this is what practical aspect. So example, think about are now CCTV records. Now in a CCTV record, what happens? There is no manual intervention. A CCTV camera is recording real-time live images of whatever is going on, and that is getting transcribed, recorded in an electronic manner. There is no copy made. There is no process of manual intervention. So supposing this CCTV record is produced for the inspection of the court, it is played in a courtroom. What is it? Is it primary evidence or secondary evidence? It is certainly primary evidence. Now, the other example which I thought of was a memory card in a voice recorder. Typically, there are a lot of these CBI prosecutions that one has. So, a lot of CBI prosecutions have charges wherein there is an allegation of demand of bribe. Now, typically, this bribe is asked over some kind of a telephone or a mobile phone. Now, what happens is there is a lot of time you have the memory card which stores that particular voice, or voice which is demanding that bribe. Now, that memory card many a times is produced in court, and that becomes the primary evidence. So now let us understand that what is this primary evidence? So primary evidence is that document which is straight away, without making any copy, is straight away produced for inspection to the court. Now these two examples we saw. Now let us look at the examples of secondary evidence. Again, we know the concept, but just to apply it to electronic documents, we will take the example of an email communication. Now an email typically is secondary evidence. Why it is secondary evidence? Because you are not going to show the code, the hard disk, or the document, or rather the email which has been sent from A party to B party. What you are going to do is you are going to take a printout of that email and going to show it to the court. So therefore it is a secondary evidence. A second example I am giving is a transcript prepared from a voice recording. So continuation of the earlier example, supposing there is a voice recording, supposing is prepared, voice A, voice B, voice A saying something, voice B saying something. Now on a computer, that thing is heard, somebody sits and prepares a transcript. That transcript, the printout of the transcript is taken and produced by way of documentary evidence in the chart sheet, or it is tendered to the court. Now what happens? That becomes a secondary evidence. So therefore, these are the examples of secondary evidence. Third example is printout of call detailed records. Again, many of us who have been practicing on the criminal side especially get a lot of these call detailed records, CDRs as they are popularly known, and they are printouts. They are printouts which are given by the agency, or let us say it's Vodafone or Airtel, whichever agency is recording that particular call. So those call detailed records are there. Now, as I said, if it's a primary electronic record and it is produced for the inspection of the court, then if you see of the evidence, the best evidence there is less to be produced. A photocopy will be considered as secondary evidence. So same thing applies. If there is a primary electronic record and that electronic record is directly produced in court, then there is a provision of section 62 which applies and it becomes primary evidence. Now, if in case you have to rely on the secondary evidence of an electronic record, then what happens? Then the whole process starts, the law then starts taking effect. Then we have to look at section 65A and 65B. Now 65A gives you just one sentence saying that 65B sets out the manner and mode in which the electronic records are to be proved. So we have to really look at 65B. Now what does 65B say? 65B says, well, this is all there, so I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to invite your attention to 2 or 3 important concepts. First of all, you begin with a non-obstante clause, which is notwithstanding anything contained in this act. So this is a non-obstante clause. We all know what is the meaning of a non-obstante clause. Then the information contained in an electronic record. So we are talking about an information contained in an electronic record and not the electronic device. What is the electronic record? It is not the device. It is not the pen drive. It is not the CD. The electronic record is the information contained in that device or the CD or the VCD or whatever it is. So it is an information contained in an electronic record which is printed on a paper, and then there's a comma, or which is stored or which is recorded or copied in optical or magnetic media. So a typical example is, let us say you make several CDs of one existing voice recording sample. That becomes, those several CDs becomes the copies, and they are the secondary copies, secondary evidence. Or let us say you take out a printout of an email. So that is a paper. Okay. If the conditions mentioned in this section are satisfied. So this is very important. The rest of it you will read. So what are those conditions that are satisfied? Now we will have to see those conditions. Now I am not going to read or rather reproduce the conditions. I am just trying to simplify them because they are all there. If you can read section 65B at length. But what are those conditions? One of the conditions is that the computer was used regularly to store or process information. by the person having lawful control over the use of the computer. So these two are essential things, that regularly it was used to store the information that you are going to ultimately prove to the court as secondary evidence, and by whom. So there has to be some kind of an authentication. That authentication comes from the person having lawful control over the use of the computer, not illegal. So every word here has got a meaning. So lawful control over the use of the computer. Now, again, let us read the highlighted portion. So that information, whatever you are going to exhibit before the court, is regularly fed into the computer in the ordinary course of the said activities. So it should be fed, or it should be made part of that system in the ordinary course of the activities. Now let us remind ourselves that we are reading the conditions under section 65B, which is the first part. Then there is a very important condition that throughout the material part of the period, the computer was operating properly. Now this is very important, because if the computer does not operate properly, then there is integrity of the information that is being shown to the court, whether this information is secure, not secure, etc., etc. And if not, supposing the computer was not operating properly, then what? Then if it was not operating properly during that part of the period, was not such as to affect the electronic record or the accuracy of its contents. So let us say, for example, you send an email to somebody, or you receive an email from somebody on date A. Okay, now you have to present it in court on date B. Between date A and date B, let us say 5 years have gone. During that 5 years, let us say you have changed one computer. Now the computer in which you downloaded that particular email is not the computer now today with you. So you have changed the computer. So therefore, this is very important. Now what you will need to establish before the court is, despite the fact that you have changed the computer, that has by no means affected the record, the accuracy of the contents. And how will you do it? That we will see in a minute. Now, one more condition: information is fed in the ordinary course of said activities. We already saw that. Now, if more than one computers are used, now there are two scenarios. Either one scenario is where you have a LAN or a network, or any kind of a wireless network where more than one computers are used. Or the other scenario is where there are used succession. For example, one computer was used to download a particular document, and after some time another computer was used to do something else. A third computer was supposed to do a third act. All of these computers, technically, in the eyes of law, will be treated as one computer. So these are the conditions. So we come to the certificate under 65B. Now, who says, or how do you say that this document is authentic, that this document is a correct replica of the original? You have to give a certificate. You means the person who is producing the document. Now, what are the requirements? Again, I have just tried to simplify it. It is not what the section, it's not a verbatim reproduction of the section. But just for our understanding, these are the requirements of law, whereby firstly we see identification of an electronic record and describing the manner in which it was produced. Now, essential, it's very essential, because unless you identify an electronic record, let us say the electronic record is an email. Now you will have to identify what is the source email. You have to identify what is the destination email. You have to identify when it was sent. You have to identify, in short, what is the title, what is the subject matter, and whether the truth of the contents can be deposed to by you or not. This was just an example. There can be many such examples. Particulars of the device used for producing the electronic record. Now, what is the device which produces the electronic record? Largely, there is one device which we normally called as a printer, and there is one device which is the computer. So let us say this is, you have downloaded, it gets down on your hard disk, let us say. From there you are taking a printout. So you will have to give the description of the computer, which file it was stored in, what was the file path, and you will also need to give a description of the printer, the model of the printer. Let us say you are using a particular software to download a particular thing from the website. You need to give the name of the software, the version of the software, and if possible also whether it is licensed copy, unlicensed copy. So basically the particulars of the device. Now it could differ from place to place and device to device. Then the third would be certificate should be signed by the person occupying a responsible official position in relation to the operation of the device. Now for a single person, it would be I own my computer, so I can give a certificate that I have downloaded something on my computer and taken a printout. But supposing I'm the finance manager of a company, do I occupy the responsible official position? Do I have the authority and lawful possession of that particular computer or not, or the computer system or not, is something which should be very, very clear in that certificate, and it should be signed by the person. Then the information on the certificate should be to the best of the knowledge and belief. So this is like your verification clause. You normally say that whatever you have stated here and before is to the best of your knowledge and belief of the person making the statement. This is also the requirement of law under 65B. Now, mind you, these requirements, though we can see only 4 requirements, these requirements have to be read with the earlier conditions of 65B, that the computer should be operating properly, that it should be secure, that if the computer is, several computers are used, then it should be considered as one computer. All that also has to be read along with the requirements under 65B. Okay, now we have the evolution of law. So this is a broad skeleton of the statute. Now we come to the various landmark cases which have evolved the law on the aspect of electronic evidence. And the first such case find the constitutional bench case in the matter of Anwar PV versus PK Bashir and others, and the citation is also given. Now what happened in this case essentially was 2000, if you see the act, the Information Technology Act was passed, and now we are in 2014. So 14 long years before really one can say that exhaustive guidelines were laid down by the Supreme Court to look at the various aspects of how an electronic document is to be looked at, how an electronic document is to be proved, and what is the probative value, what is the meaning of 65B, etc., etc. So what are the propositions which were laid down by the Supreme Court in this landmark judgment? We have already seen this. I've tried to collate it right at the beginning, but just for the sake of the judgment, what does the judgment say? It says that the electronic record is a document within the meaning of Section 3 of the Evidence Act. So we already have seen this. It also says that primary evidence of an electronic record does not require any compliance of Section 65B of the Evidence Act. So this, I think we must all bear in mind very clearly. So when we are looking at giving evidence of an electronic record, the first question that I think all of us must ask ourselves is whether this is primary evidence or secondary evidence. If it is primary evidence, then there is no requirement of any certificate under 65B of the Evidence Act. The constitutional bench of Anwar is very, very clear on this. It does not require any compliance of 65B. Now we come to the secondary evidence. Then here it says very, very emphatically that the compliance of 65B is mandatory. It is compulsory. Okay. Now it also says that the secondary evidence of the electronic record must be accompanied by a certificate under 65B. So how do you authenticate a secondary evidence of an electronic record? You authenticate it by preparing a certificate under 65B, and you tender it at the time of leading the evidence. Now, why I have underlined that at the time of leading the evidence is there is a lot of discussion and controversy over when should this 65B be given. So the answer is to be found in Anwar's judgment, and there are subsequently also other judgments which also make it very clear. In fact, Bombay High Court also is very clear on this, that it need not be filed along with the complaint or the charge sheet. It has to be filed, or the right time of filing a 65B certificate is at the time of leading of the evidence. Next, so this is your Anwar's judgment, which is the landmark classicus locus on that. Now in 2018, there was a question which arose. Now the question is very interesting. The question was whether there is a requirement of a certificate, that is a 65B certificate, in case of a secondary evidence of an electronic record, in case where the device produced the record was not in the possession of the party producing it. So in other words, what happens when the device is in possession of the opposite party? Let us say I want to prove a document, which is an electronic record, but I am not in possession of that computer or output or the device which has produced that electronic record. Then what happens? Should I be deprived of my right of giving a relevant evidence, otherwise which would have been relevant, simply because I cannot adhere to the manner of proving that document? So there was a lot of debate and discussion. The Supreme Court has observed, so there was, let us see what was argued in that case. So essentially it was argued that the party in possession of a relevant may be denied. So we just saw that. Now 65, so this is what the court observed, that 65A and 65B were not a complete code on the subject, and that the requirements were procedural requirements. So this is how the Supreme Court is looking at this scenario in a 2-judge bench. Now I have not written that, but let me say it now, that it was a 2-judge bench which has made these observations, and it has said that 65A and B were not a complete code on the subject, and that the requirements were procedural requirements. And in the light of all of this, it was held that it was not mandatory in such a case to comply with 65B. So let us now remind ourselves, just going back a little bit, let us remind ourselves what does the 2018 judgment say. 2018 judgment essentially says that in case you do not have access or lawful possession over the computer output from which that particular electronic record is generated, then what do you do? Because it is in the hands of the opposite party. What does one do in that case? So that is the situation, a very peculiar situation, which the Supreme Court commented upon and said that in that scenario, fair trial demands that you cannot be prevented from giving that particular evidence, and therefore 65B was not compulsory. Now, what happens next is that I'm sorry, this has just got a little ahead of me. One second. So this is where now in 2017, this is the appeal number. So the judgment that I was referring to did not have a citation, but we can certainly find the citation out. This is very recent, 2000, dated, but this are somewhere in 2009 late. And what essentially it does is that in view of a case of a higher strength of judges, it says that Shafi Mohammed needs reconsideration. The observation that the Supreme Court makes at this time, while referring the judgment to a larger bench, is that the passage of time, reliance on electronic records during investigation is bound to increase. Therefore, the law needs to be laid down with certainty. So therefore, a larger bench is now constituted, and it is considering the issue. Now, what is the issue that is being considered? Let us not harbor any misconceptions about that. The issue is being considered on a very narrow conspectus. That narrow part is that whether what happens, or rather whether 65B is mandatorily required in a peculiar case where the electronic evidence, secondary evidence has to be given of an electronic record, and that device is not in the lawful control or possession of the person who is giving it. So this is the narrow conspectus. Primary evidence law is clear. Secondary evidence, when the device is in your possession, the law is very clear. So the only gray area that we can now see is that where the device is not in your possession. Okay. So there may be two views only in the case, secondary evidence, so and so. You can go through this. Now we come to, I think, what most of us are looking out for, and what bothers us a lot in court. How does one actually go about proving a document? How does one go about demolishing a document which is sought to be proved? So there are some things which, of course, this is not some, this is not some kind of, I have not taken this from any judgment or anything. This is quite simply my distilled experience of the last 15, 16 years in conducting trials, and the kind of practical difficulties that I myself have encountered, I've seen people encounter, and really you learn from trial and error. So the first thing that you do when you look at a document that you have given, or that's the doc, what the other side is to give in court, and which is the electronic record. The first thing you do is to examine whether the document that you seek to prove or refute is a primary electronic record or not. That is the first test it should go through. Because if it's a primary record, then the question of certificate under 65B does not arise. We have already seen the law on this. Okay. Now I've dealt with a little further on that. For example, CCTV record, we saw that the recording of the data is without a manual intervention. It is automatic, real time. So if the original CCTV records are produced in court, subject to the other standards of proof, it can be exhibited directly in court. So please don't misunderstand me when I'm saying that CCTV record can be directly read in evidence. I'm not saying read in evidence. I'm saying produced in court. If they are original and they are produced in court, they can be tendered in evidence. There is a world of difference between tendering a document in evidence and proving a document. Proving a document requires truth of contents, the author, the custody, the link, the chain of evidence, etc., etc. So far as production of a document is concerned, tendered for evidence, yes, CCTV record is a classic example of an original electronic record. Okay. So the defense lawyers obviously can be given copies of the CCTV records, because what you're going to prove is the document before the court. Bear in mind that even though primary evidence is produced, the truth or otherwise of these contents of the record will have to be otherwise proved. Mere production of primary evidence is not a substitute for the truth of its content. So this is a golden principle in any case, which all of us will have to remember. So now we come to the second part. So it is not a primary record, it is a secondary record, secondary evidence. So you have to prepare a 65B certificate. Now practically, can we look at some pointers as to how a 65B certificate is prepared? So I have made some pointers which I've thought, obviously all of you can also pitch in, and we can have your own experiences, and perhaps you can add to this. This is my take on it. I would prefer, I normally prefer it in affidavit form, because I take inspiration from the fact that at the end of that section, it says that ultimately the deponent has to say that it is to the best of his knowledge and belief. So that is where I take my inspiration from, and I normally prepare it in affidavit format, and it has worked till now. But let me tell you that the law does not mandate it. What the law says is that it should be a certificate, and that's it. It doesn't say that it should be on oath, it should be affirmed, etc., etc. But I normally affirm it. So then this is a very important thing. Identify the electronic record correctly. Of course, the law also says it, but many a times we don't do it properly. Now, if it's an email, you give the source email, the destination email, subject matter of the email in short. Why in short? Because you're going to annex the printout, right? So that is how you identify the electronic record. Once you are done with the identification, the next point is, if it's a download of a website, mention the website, mention the URL, the time when it was downloaded, to which file it was downloaded. So that is, you complete the path of its download. Then mention who has downloaded it. If you haven't, whether you have given authorization to that person, whether that person has the password, whether the system is secure or not, because a lot depends. We have already seen the conditions of 65B. A lot depends on the security and integrity of the system that we are working on. So if it's a password protected system, does the person who is downloading it have the password? Yes, no. So we need to be very clear and make positive awareness about it in the certificate. Mention who has downloaded a record, whether the person was lawfully in possession of the computer at the relevant time. If downloaded, state the software, if any, used, with the version, whether licensed copy or not. I think we had referred to this earlier also. But this is basically, now these are my thoughts. One can, there could be different situations. Like you download something from the website, or you're trying to prove an email, or maybe you're trying to prove a chat between two people. Now, for that you prepare a transcript. Now, when you prepare a transcript, how do you prepare a transcript? So you should be very clear and explicit as to in the manner in which this whole exercise has been done. That can be a pointer. If the printout is taken, mention the make and model of the printer. I think that's very necessary. and the time of taking the print, because at the time that you download the particular thing in the computer may not be the same thing that you take may not be the same time that you take a printout at the time when you take a printout. Okay, that's very essential. Make specific averments about personal or documentary knowledge, because this would go a long way in proving your document. Remember that production is not proof. So mere production of a document is not tantamount to proof. So you will have to make specific averments about your personal or documentary knowledge about that particular record. Yes, very important. Make specific averments about truth of contents. Make specific averments about the security of the device or computer used and that it was operating normally. If the computer is changed from the time of creating the document and printing or downloading, then make specific averments regarding the change of the computer, also stating how the computer was transferred in a secure manner in the new computer. How the document was transferred in the new computer. So I think I have come to an end. It's 6 o'clock. I started at 5:30. I wanted to finish this at 6 o'clock by 30 minutes, so that I don't bore you with law, because all of us are practicing lawyers. Probably what I've just told you is more or less a rehash of what you already know. Maybe I've just revised your memory. What I would be more keenly interested in are those practical difficulties that all of us face, and some of which I might really be able to address. And I would be also keen to know what kind of queries are there. So I am throwing open the session for any queries if you have. Any queries, anybody? I think we have a system of, oh, there is some, okay, I got the queries, fine. Now there is, let us see the queries.
Ashish, sir, you can take a few questions from chat. Sorry, I was unable to.
No problem.
Hello? Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I was unable to speak
Bashir,
on right time because I was muted by the host himself. So, yes, so I had to request Angad to unmute me so that I can speak. So now there are few questions, sir. If you can take it.
Yeah. I think I have finished it in very less time. So I think let us go to the queries. There is somebody who has given the citation of Anwar versus Bashir. I think I have also given it. So thank you. Then you, is it necessary that an author of 65 certificate is the same as the deponent or witness? Because sometimes witness deposes based on available records with respect to mails, etc. Because he is not aware personally. At such time, can certificate be given by IT cell in charge of the company? And thereafter, is it necessary that author of IT certificate is examined? So let me take the last question first. Yes, it is necessary for the author of IT certificate to be examined, because see, let us look at the chain of evidence. Let us say that there is a electronic record. A company normally there is an IT cell in all companies. So the IT manager goes into the witness box. He could be the signatory of a 65B certificate. So he is examined. Now supposing there is a cross examination, make some dent in the integrity of the evidence, either the integrity or the chain. It may happen that he might not have been personally accessible to that computer. Also remember that the safeguard that the law puts in 65B is that he should have personal knowledge. Even he should have knowledge of the document. So it is not restricted only to personal knowledge. It could be documentary knowledge, but if the documentary knowledge is impeccable and he can field the questions on cross examination, then it is a matter of evidence how the entire appreciation of 65B would look at. So basically, yes, you would have to examine if possible, you have to examine the person who's downloaded it. If not, then somebody who's in charge of and responsible for that particular department, yes, he can be examined. And it is best to give as explicit a 65B, as detailed and a 65B certificate as is permissible. How does one prove a WhatsApp chat? In the same manner as you would prove an email. So you have a situation where A is sending a WhatsApp to B. A printout of that WhatsApp obviously has to be taken, because ultimately the memory cards can't be read. So that is the original evidence. And your WhatsApp transcript. So this is what I was referring to when I was talking about a transcript. So your WhatsApp transcript on printout would become the secondary evidence, and therefore yes, 65B certificate would be necessary. So the manner of proving a WhatsApp chat is more or less similar to an email chat or an email communication. Then you have whether the account statement produced by a bank officer from a centralized server are secondary or primary evidence. We'll have to go back to Bankers Book Evidence Act, because Bankers Book Evidence Act is also amended by the Information Technology Act, and there the answer lies. So if that document is a primary evidence as per the Bankers Book Evidence Act, then it certainly can be tendered in court. But many a times what happens is that the bank officers, because many of my cases has happened, the bank officer comes with a photocopy. It is not the authenticated copy that is taken from the centralized server. So that photocopy is obviously a secondary evidence, and that secondary evidence is not as per the provisions of 65B. So therefore, you have to be very clear as to whether it's a primary evidence or a secondary evidence. Then oh God, this is going very fast. The person having computer is not expert. How can you rely on his 65B certificate? He need not be an expert. See, normally what you do in an original certificate, let us say you have an original document which gets lost, and you have to give us secondary evidence. What do? You take a photocopy, you make an application for leading secondary evidence, and you lead the secondary evidence, saying that the original is lost, etc., etc. You file an affidavit, whatever is a provision of law, you do it. The same way, this person, so just imagine that 63 and 65 are not there. So those sections dealing with secondary evidence are not there. And instead of that, the legislature has put 65B. So all that you are doing is giving secondary evidence of a document which you have in your custody as an original. Now you are giving that document or 65B, of course you are going to be cross-examined. So it is not a question of being an expert. You have to only give a 65B certificate, and you can be cross-examined only on the link of chain of evidence or link of evidence that is there as per your 65B certificate. Then can WhatsApp chat be considered as primary evidence? Yes, but you can't give the memory card to the court, or you can't give the phone to the court. So you will have to take a printout, which is secondary evidence, and therefore it is 65B is mandatory. Is it necessary to give separate 65B certificate for each separate email or every separate electronic record? The answer technically would be yes, but it would depend on the facts of the circumstances. If they are part of the same transaction, let us say there is a series of emails which A has sent to B arising out of the same transaction, then perhaps you could probably contemplate giving a common 65B. But to my mind, it is safer to give a separate, for every separate email, a 65B certificate. Then I'm just trying to eliminate repeated. Okay, if CCTV recording filed in bits and pieces admissible as primary, certainly not. You have to look at the timestamps. CCTV camera, when CCTV recording has got timestamps. So if you look at the timestamps, you can find out whether it is edited or interpolated or something is taken out. So if that is not there, then the integrity of the evidence is a big question mark. Therefore, it is not admissible. Person having then how can we prove voice sample in a court of law? That's a completely different thing, Sachin. So this is not something to do with electronic record and the manner of admission. That will require a separate talk. So voice sample, there's a huge case law on voice sample in India. If you want to prove the email of government record, what kind of type of certificate required? The same type of certificate that you would prove a private email. Then Yeah, one of the queries I have is whether this in 138 cases, NI cases, when you file affidavit of evidence, normally you will have to deal with the question of the tracking reports. So what does one do? So one has to give a 65B certificate, because what you are doing is this India Post website that is there, which is giving you the tracking report. Ultimately, is a website. You are downloading something from that website and you are taking a printout. So it is secondary evidence, and therefore 65B certificate will have to be accompanied by the along with the printout of that document. Then certificate merely mentions its authenticity but doesn't vouch for its contents. Exactly, Sanjay. Exactly, that's the point I was trying to make. So your affidavit of evidence must go beyond vouching for its mentioning its authenticity, and you must also talk about the contents, whether they are true and correct, whether you are personally aware of the contents, etc., etc. That is a traditional classical manner in proving a document. So obviously 65B is not going to be kind of a be all and end all to prove a document. You will also have to talk about the contents, certainly. Then in a police case, prosecution has not tendered the CCTV footage while filing the charge sheet. Can the first informant introduce the same while leading evidence with the help of PP? Unfortunately, the Bombay High Court ruling says, I mean, although I'm saying the word unfortunately because it becomes very difficult for the defense lawyer to take up a defense. The law says that this ultimately CCTV footage. See now, look at what you have basically asked me is CCTV footage, correct? Now, if you assume that the CCTV footage is original, it doesn't require a 65B, correct? Now, once it is, let us say, filed in the court of law, the question is whether it should be filed along with the charge sheet, or that it should be it can be given along with the first informant. So the answer is that at the time of leading the evidence, you can be given a copy. So technically speaking, now we will have to go back again at 207 and look at whether CCTV footage was mentioned in the admission denial under 294. If it was mentioned, then yes, you have every right to get that entire CCTV footage at the time when it was tendered in court, because that is your right under 207 and admission denial. But if not, then probably if it's a new development, then certainly the first informant can introduce it. But you will have to be given the copies of that CCTV footage well in advance so that you can formulate your defense. Then Shashi Mohammed case is per incurium. Technically, let us not go on whether it is per incurium or not, because if you ask me personally, Shafi Mohammed actually doesn't disrupt Anwar versus Bashir at all. It talks about a situation which Anwar versus Bashir has not considered. So it is. I wouldn't go to the extent of saying per incurium. How defendant can disprove electronic record as it is on record and proved by plaintiff? I didn't get that. Hacking means a manipulation. Okay. WhatsApp manipulation to suit a party. So I have come to the end of my queries. I don't think I have missed anything. Well, there are a lot. Though there is a generated copy certificate. Every record is there, but if the contents is not related with the particular issue, then it can't be taken on record. So you can't give. See, basic thing of all evidence is that it must be relevant. So if to begin with, if the document itself is not relevant, then whether you give a beautiful 65B or not, it doesn't make a difference. Then. In some evidence, many emails are filed which are addressed to different directors of same company. Evidence is filed by a single director. Then do we require 65B from all directors to whom? Yes, of course, because they are different. I believe, I mean, I assume that there are different destination emails. So if A is sending email to 5 different people and 5 different people are receiving, then one of them is going to exit. Obviously, you will have to 5 times. Sir, is there a time limit for primary to be converted into secondary? No. All recording from second source permissible. If original recorded copy, ultimately that is secondary evidence, and that is why 65B is required. Sir, in WhatsApp chat print, who is to issue a certificate? Whether mobile owner. Okay. Now, not the mobile owner. Now, if the mobile owner and the person, now, if your client is the mobile owner, then the answer is yes. If your client is not the mobile owner, then whoever is the mobile owner ultimately would have to issue a certificate, because even though you may be doing it, technically it is downloaded from his document, and you have to show that from his WhatsApp, or let's say his phone, which is connected to your computer. You have downloaded it, and basically it is like you file an affidavit of your client, right? You file your own affidavit. So the 65 will have to be given by the person whose mobile phone is it's registered on that person. Spy cam. Oh, that's out of our topic today.
So I think you need to take another session to cover this topic. And there are a few questions relating to hacking and all. So I think it may be covered in another session.
Right. So hacking I can cover in one part. I can say that ultimately what is hacking? Hacking is the destruction of the integrity of the source, right? So even if there is a proper 65B, even if the document looks to be authentic, let us say the document is hacked, then what happens? Then you will have to point out that the integrity of the source itself is a problem. Therefore, this document cannot be taken on record. Proof of audio tape will require another session altogether.
Uh,
I think we should
yes,
wind.
sir. It's already about to happen 1 hour. So thank you so much, Ashish sir, for enlightening us on today's topic. It was really very interesting. I just loved it, and I'm sure that all the participants would have also the same experience as I'm having right now. And sir, as a few questions were raised in chat box regarding hacking and all, so personally, I feel that you should do one more session. So
Yeah,
we'll
I'll be
we'll
there.
speak
Yeah, in fact,
regarding this. Yes.
yeah, I would like to do a session also on voice recording, because I see a lot of queries on voice recording, voice sample, and all that. So there is a huge case law on that. So we can probably take one more session sometime.
Yes. Surely, sir. Surely, sir. And thank you so much once again, sir. On behalf
Yeah,
of Law Club and Law Chamber of Siddharth Murarka, thank you so much.
yeah, thanks a lot to Siddharth also. You've been a wonderful team, and God bless all of you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Now, Angad, you can this end this session. Angad, if you